Hi guys, last month in January I told you that I would do at least one recipe from each month's BBC Good Food magazine, but this month it's taken me a while to get around to doing it because I've been really busy, and also I decided to do this onglet or hanger steak, which I had to order in from my butcher's, with red wine shallots and Cheats real chips. You will not believe how I did these chips. They were so easy, and I think the nicest chips that I've ever made. And this onglet steak is a revelation. It's so economical. This piece was so cheap and fed so many of us, and so much easier to do one big bit of beef for a lot of people than a lot of individual steaks. So good, I'm definitely buying it again. So this is what it looks like. This is your onglet or your hanger steak. It's 600 grams of it, and it fed 4 of us very comfortably. Trim it as neat as you can if you'd like, but to be honest, my butcher did such a good job, I was happy to leave it the way it was. The recipe states that you need 2 banana shallots and chop them up, but seeing as I can only find these regular ones, which are a lot smaller, I used 9 of them. Once they're all peeled, just slice them up as thin as you can. Now, to make that sauce to go with your steak, add about 25 grams of butter to a hot frying pan and allow it all to melt down and start to foam. Now add the beef trimmings from your steak, if you have them, followed by half your sliced shallots, 1 fresh bay leaf and a good sprig of thyme. I'm using a lot of thyme here because I love it. Then stir all that up and let it fry away in the butter for just a few minutes until it goes lightly brown. Then add a teaspoon of flour and stir it in and cook it off for a couple of minutes until it's all nice and pasty, before you add 300 milliliters of red wine. Then bring this to the boil and let it cook away for a few minutes until it's reduced by half and is nice and syrupy. Then take it off the heat and pass it through a fine mesh sieve to collect all the shallots and herbs and unrendered beef trimmings. Discard all that and you'll have your sauce, which can be made ahead. If it's chilled and covered, it can be made up to 2 days in advance. Now get started on your Cheats real chips. There was 4 of us, so I used about 1 kilogram, which is about 2 pounds of Morris Piper potatoes, which I peeled and then cut into really chunky chips. I never deep fried chips like this at home because I thought it was really important that you get the oil to a really hot temperature first. Otherwise I thought they'd be really soggy and gross, but this Cheats way is so good, and it's foolproof as well. All you do is pile your chunky chips into a big pan and then top it all up with sunflower oil. I could give you quantities. I could say that I used almost 1 litre here, but that really depends on how many chips you're making. But the important thing is that you cover all your chips by about 2 centimeters of sunflower oil. You then bring the oil to the boil on a high heat, giving it a stir with a wooden spoon every so often, so that the chips won't stick. How long it takes will depend on how many chips you use and how much oil, but for me today this took about half an hour to cook. When they're about 15 minutes from being finished, take your onglet. You can see that some bits are thin and some bits are thick, so just hammer it all out with a meat mallet. Not so that it's really thin, you don't want it really thin at all, you still want it about a good inch thickness, but an even thickness. Then season both sides generously with salt. I'm using these lovely sea salt flakes because they're a lot more mellow and it's harder to over season, but if you're using finer flowing stuff, just be a little bit careful. Now melt another 25 grams of butter in a frying pan until it's really good and foaming. Then add your onglet steak. This is such a beast of a thing. It's so big, 600 grams of it, and this thing only costs €6. Recently I did a recipe with 250 grams of fillet steak and it cost €13, so this is so much cheaper. Less than half the price for more than double the quantity. It's so economical, and this onglet steak or hanger steak has such a nice taste as well, really strong and beefy. I like my beef really underdone, so I'm going to give a steak this size 4 minutes aside. You'll see how it turns out at the end. It is very rare, so if you want it more done, you can just give it another minute or 2 per side. I should point out now that while I found this steak really tasty and flavoursome and delicious, that BBC Good Food magazine says that it shouldn't be cooked to overdone. It should only be cooked to medium or rare, so if you like your steak well done, then maybe you should stick to a different type of cut. When it's done to your liking, just take it out and let it rest on a plate for a while. Add another bit of butter to the pan, followed by the other half of your sliced shallots. Let them cook away for just a few minutes until they're lightly browned and caramelized. Pour back in your red wine jus from earlier and let it come back to a simmer. Pour back in the resting juices and mix them in. Now carve this massive steak into thin strips against the grain. Vegetarians may need to look away now because this is very, very rare here, but it was so delicious. When you're finished carving, just spread out all the beef so it's evenly spread over a nice platter and then spoon over your red wine shallots. Your chips will be done when they're really nice and golden like this. That means they've got a really crisp exterior but a really nice fluffy soft interior. So when that happens, just transfer them to a tray lined with some kitchen towel. Then immediately give them a good sprinkling of sea salt flakes. When they're really hot like this, the salt will really stick to them. Then I transferred them to a nicer, heated serving bowl. Then I gave the steak a good sprinkling of fresh parsley and served it all with a few teaspoons of French Dijon mustard, just because that's exactly what they did in the magazine. Thanks a million for watching, guys. You definitely need to try this at home. This onglet or hanger steak is a really easy, cheap way of not just feeding but treating people at home. Be sure to let me know how you get on if you do try this, and if you like the video, hit the like and subscribe button below, and in the description you'll find all the links to my social media and the link to my blog where you'll find the full recipe at www.ruggiecook.org.